she's literally shaping economies with this tour. She broke Ticketmaster. She broke the AMC website when people were trying to sign up to go see a lyric music video. She has an enormous effect on our society and on people. And I think to not study it for some superficial reason or being afraid of being perceived as superficial is a bit ridiculous.
My business is your business. It's all up in my lady business with me, Mary Nisi. Hey guys, welcome to All Up in My Lady Business for today. We are recording this on what's probably soon going to be a national day of recognition, October 3rd, which is the day that the life of a Showgirl by Taylor Swift has come to us. And I thought, what better way to celebrate that than bringing on my good friend Jean Clipperton, who is, I'm sure she has better words to use for this, but she's a data nerd. Actually, Jean, why don't you explain who you are first? I'm not saying this right.
Sure. I am a computational social scientist. My background is actually, I have a PhD in political science. My earlier research was on the European Union and legislative compliance. And then I went to the Eras Tour. And now I study pop music for the most part. So I have an article that came out yesterday about all of Taylor Swift's lyrics, looking at them using natural language processing. So my undergraduate focus was on philosophy and math. So I'm kind of going back a bit to philosophy of language, thinking about language and meaning. And then I'm bringing in the computational side of things for this article. So we look at all of her songs and the lyrics and all of the tracks on her albums and looking at different emotional language that's present and different kind of linguistic uses. So pronouns, verbs, actions, focus temporally to just kind of see what's there, which is pretty awesome. So in my daily life, I teach a lot of classes, both in terms of like programming and data analysis, data visualization. And then I do some research design, some simulations. And then I'm hoping next year to have a class in computational approaches to studying music.
And where do you teach that?
I teach at the University of Chicago.
So Jean's my smartest friend. As Jean told me all of the things that she did, I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know what a natural language model is, but I'm hoping that by the end of this, we will all understand what all of this means.
Together. It'll be beautiful.
So I think Jean may have had a little bit more love for Taylor prior to the Eras Tour. We have a group chat with some friends of ours that all we do is talk about Taylor Swift in there, and we're all over 40, which not the target demo for Taylor, I'm sure, but here we are. We really, it's ridiculous, but it gives me a lot of joy to just be dumb and talk about dumb stuff, and but also the smart stuff around it as well. So thanks for coming on today, Jean. So I'm like, do I talk about who you are or do we talk about your data? Like those are both such incredible things.
Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So I think one thing to kind of kick it off is how this project got started. But I do want, before we get into that, to push back a little. Like, I think talking about Taylor Swift is not dumb. And part of my motivation for this project is that we just don't have a lot of research on women, like women as artists, women as musicians, women as songwriters. And I think that's something that's really important. How this project got started is sort of by chance. I was teaching a class. I had a segment on text analysis, and I wanted to use an example. A lot of the like canonical examples you use are like text of Jane Austen books, which is like great. But I was like, this is not something that super deeply resonates with me. I don't think it's really going to resonate with my students as much either. So I should do something that I'm interested in. And I had just gone to the Eras Tour at that point.
It's interesting to mention the Jane Austen of it all, because I feel like that brings it to like the women of canon that the women that we have elevated to being canon or worth studying. I say this as my most intellectual endeavors in the past, my postgraduate life, if that's something that we can even speak of, is Jeopardy. And when on Jeopardy, there's like 10 total women that are ever answers, or that have like repeat
Hmm.
And I will say Taylor Swift is on there all the time. In the last, like, 2 or 3 years, I would say at least once a week there's a question about her,
I love that.
which I think is great. And, sometimes it's smart and sometimes they're dumb songs, dumb questions about her dating life. But to expand what we consider canon and expand what we consider intellectual endeavors and things to be studied that women are creating, and thinking that what we make is sort of a dumbed down version of what men do. Whereas I would argue that what she's doing is with songwriting is, I don't know if I'm saying this just because I'm a psychotic fan, but her lyrics are good.
They're real good.
They're real
Um,
good.
Yeah, so that's what happened is I did this for a class to have some examples. I was like, I need some data, I need some text. I bet I can find these lyrics online. I had just gone to the Eras tour, and so I put it into the slides. And then I was thinking, like, this is pretty fun. I bet I could write this up somewhere. And then it just kept growing and growing. And then as I dug into the literature, I saw, we don't have a lot of research on women. And when we think about pop music, there's also the role of like authorship and the songwriter. And she became, again, like my co-author on the project is one of my former graduate students. I have a current graduate student kind of on the next phase of the project. And as I explained, like, I am the least crazy of the Swifties that you're going to meet. Like, you may think that I am intense about this, but truly I'm like 75th percentile. Like, there's a whole range past this. But to me, it just seemed obvious that we should be studying her. And there's been, since I started the project, there's been a lot more research. I think a lot of the research has focused more from kind of this like rhetorical, like focus in a
How she uses
more,
literary tropes
yeah,
and,
which is super great and awesome. But I thought, I have this computational skill set. I've got kind of this setup here. I think I have something to say in a space where, a lot of the artists who are being studied in this space are like Bruce Springsteen,
Bob Dylan,
Tom Petty, and then Dolly. So I thought, like, let's update, the people that we're looking at and bring this here. And especially if we're going to bring in anybody, Taylor Swift just makes a lot of sense because, famously, she co-writes or writes all of her own music. And so if we think about this from an academic exercise, and what we're interested in is thinking about how is it that someone conveys meaning and uses songwriting as their art, Taylor Swift makes a lot of sense because she likes to retain kind of creative control over the process in a way that is pretty distinctive.
I think she's also like, she kind of goes 360 around the whole, like, it's like there's not one part of the entire machine of what creates music that she doesn't try to elevate, make better. She touches everything. She's not just like, I'm gonna let my publicist deal with that, or I'm gonna let my business manager figure out the money. Like, if she doesn't understand it, she's not doing it. And I think that is actually like a very good role model for really anyone in that world. But really, the retaining of control, that, I mean, all of it is interesting. All of it is to be studied.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. So in the project itself, there were a bunch of like really cool things that came out. And one of the parts that was really fun for me is that at this point, I feel like to some extent these songs have kind of merged with the fiber of my being. Like, I deeply know the songs. And so when I see what kind of output we have from the models, I'm able to interpret that and understand, like, yes, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense, or here's this pattern that is immediately clear because I know what tracks those are, or I know what albums they're on. So it was really fun because I was able to kind of dig in a way that can be hard. So one of the challenges of computational work in general is usually you're working at such a large scale that you can kind of only speak to trends. And in this paper, we do speak to trends, but I can also look at a particular song and have an understanding. So one of my favorite albums prior to yesterday was the Tortured Poets Department and the song Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. And it's
a masterpiece.
It's such a good song.
A masterpiece. And it sneaks up on you too.
Yeah.
Like, when I first heard it, I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. And then one day it just like clicked and I was like, this is the greatest song ever created.
It's amazing. So seeing the results from the model. So part of what you do in or kind of my flavor of computational social science is I really want to make things interpretable. So the question is, how do we kind of leverage these models to help us gain a deeper understanding? And in the results, there's sort of quadrants of her music. So we find that there are different ways that we can think about how, like, what the landscape of her songs looks like. And so there's positive emotion, there's negative emotion, and then there's more kind of lyrically focused across like all of these songs. And Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is just in kind of this lower right quadrant, which is like deep, intense negative emotion. And so I named that segment Female Rage the Musical. I think that was the subtitle. The like original title of that is something about like melancholy and anger. Right. And so for me, it was really fun because I could see like, oh, these songs, I did feel like those songs are connected. And now I can see like empirically in the data, yeah, they do have a string.
And so what is the data? So computational social work is what?
Computational social science.
Social science. Better. Yeah. Good
It's
catch.
all good. All good. Basically I always tell people it's kind of like programming type stuff. So you're using computational models in some way. In this project, I'm doing text analysis. So
Okay.
you might have heard of it. It's called just like text as data. So the idea is that we're taking the actual literal lyrics and then effectively like making variables out of them. So each song has like a score on how joyful it is, how angry it is, based on the literal words present within the song.
And so so that's what gets things into the quadrant is.
And so, yeah, those are your variables. And then the quadrants is the model. So I use a unsupervised machine learning model. The way I kind of frame it is you bring all these variables and you just sort of dump them in a pile and just sort them out to say, like, what are these connections? What's there? So that's what the algorithm does. Like the machine learning process of principal component analysis looks at, we've got a lot of variables here. Are there some that are kind of connected to each other? And so within the body of Taylor Swift's work, there's a lot of kind of more linguistic type components. So how it is that it's constructed. And then there's a lot of clustering of positive emotions and a lot of clustering of negative emotions, which kind of makes sense.
Is it taking into consideration, like, does it understand metaphor? Like, is it based purely on the words, or is it trying to like interpret? Because so much of what she says is buried in, layers of, tropes.
Right. Sometimes it does okay, sometimes it doesn't. So it's sort of two levels to the process. So the first is converting the text into variables, and then the next is converting the variables, like including them into the model to see what the output is like. So the variables that get included are kind of in two camps. One is just purely emotions. So there's 8 emotions: anger, disgust, trust, anticipation, surprise, joy, and I might be missing one. But
There's only 8 emotions?
yeah, like big category emotions, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's a lot more emotions, but if I had a wheel of 37 emotions, how are you gonna kind of
Mhm.
neatly draw
And
any
some
conclusions?
there's probably Venn diagrams too. It's like anger and disgust can also, those can be covered, or those can.
So, yeah, so there's like a question of like, how do these connect? And so I look kind of big picture about that. And then there's also a software program you can use that will pull out a lot of different measures of your text. So you can look at like more like literal linguistic structure, like how often is she using a verb? Right? When she's using pronouns, is she using I, we, they? So you can do that kind of work. But then you can also look at like what are substantively the things that are happening. So is there conflict? Is there the mention of friendships? Is there mentions of like male individuals versus female individuals? So there's a whole range of different ways we can sort of not quite slice, but like provide perspective on what's happening. So the text, step 1 is text, step 2 is variables, and then step 3 is the model. And then the model kind of spits out where the songs are within the space. So you can kind of look up and you can say, for example, All Too Well is kind of in between an emotional, like a negative emotional space and a more kind of narrative based space, which makes sense. So All Too Well is a track on Red, where I feel is one of her most evocative, maybe. Like, I feel like she paints a picture in that song in a really compelling way. And so to me, it's very interesting that that's where that song lands versus, I'm trying to think, one of the
Of a positive song?
most of Speak Now is kind of in this, like, I call it Long Live the Hope of It All, which is like a mashup of
Mhm.
concepts from very different albums and eras. But to me, the Speak Now era has grown on me quite a lot, but it very
Me
much
too.
gives girl in a bedroom writing in her journal, I feel like, and that there is that component to her writing as well. And that's kind of this like upper left sort of things haven't yet come to be. And that's like a very early part of Taylor that is very predominant. So it's really interesting to kind of see how all these pieces come together because in some respects, like the analysis, the PCA, it knows what you tell it. So it knows the albums, like you give it the titles of the album. It knows the like variables and whatever the values are. There's no reason why songs should be placed anywhere or why albums should be placed anywhere except numerically based on their relationships. And what happens within Taylor Swift's work is that there's both clustering and a progression of her albums. So in the article, I break out her work into kind of 3 eras. So she has her early era, which is Debut or Taylor Swift. It's Speak Now and Fearless. And those 3 albums have kind of a very young, youthful energy to them in like I ended up taking this out of the article, but there's a lot more girl language there, right? Which is
Yeah.
reflective because she's early in her career. Like it's
She
very
was, in fact, a girl at the time.
right, correct. Then she moves into kind of this middle area. And so we're thinking about, say, Lover within that era, where she's kind of moving into a more sophisticated space. We see her digging into more kind of emotional content, emotional language. And she's moving away from kind of this more fanciful phrasing that she had done previously. And then we get the pandemic, we get so Evermore, Folklore, we get um TTPD, which is
Midnights.
fantastic. Right. Well, but Midnights is one thing that's really interesting is that it in the results ends up being pretty close to Lover. And there had been some fan theories about, are these sibling albums? And
Mhm.
they end up being quite close to each other in space.
They really I mean, it's if you
Yeah.
wanna start I mean, I agree that Midnights and Lover are companion pieces.
Yeah.
It's almost like they are the beginning and the end. I mean, even though she was with Joe during Rep, I feel like I like to talk about them as if I know them. It does feel like the bookends of those are I don't know how she could have imagineered that.
And that's the thing that's like so fascinating is like as both a Swiftie and, a computational person, it was really fun to see them be next to each other and the results and be like, I knew it. Like, I feel so validated
Mhm.
right now to see them next to each other because there is something about the framing and the phrasing present within the lyrics of these albums that like connect them to one another. And so for me, like that was super, super fun to see those pieces. And then I also got to dig into like the idea of a track 5. The lore is that I believe, is it White Horse? Is that the first track 5? What's track 5 on Debut?
Probably White Horse, that sounds about right.
That might be Fearless. But in any case, the first couple of track 5s were quite kind of emotionally rich and vulnerable. And somehow fans commented or it sort of came into consciousness that this was a thing. And like Taylor being Taylor then allegedly leaned into that. Did you find it?
Cold as You was,
There we go.
and then White Horse is Fearless.
Yeah, okay. And so once that happened, then we get Speak Now with Dear John, which I feel is brilliant.
It's
So many levels and layers to this. So we see this like track 5 phenomenon. So this is like well known about like by Swifties. People talked about when TTPD, the Tortured Poets Department, was coming out, like seeing So Long London was the like track 5 and questions and comments about what that was going to be like. On Life of a Showgirl, Eldest Daughter is the track 5. And so there was a lot of kind of hype and questions. So I actually empirically look at track 5s. And one of the things that came out of this project that was also just intellectually a very fun exercise was to think about, how do I go from what I know as a Swiftie to thinking about, how do I explain that? How do I sort of formalize that and then operationalize it to measure it in the real world? And what we landed on ended up being in the title of the article. And it's this idea of Swiftie and saudade. So saudade is a Portuguese term. I'm kind of dealing with this like bittersweet longing. And it's the entire core of it is this juxtaposition of both positive and negative emotions in a very specific way. The one of the closest words I would say that we have in English is like nostalgia,
Mhm.
but kind of even more poignant or kind of evocative than that. And so that was how I kind of came to frame this question of track fives. Is when we think about what is happening in a track five, the idea is that metaphorically, like things are being laid bare, that there's vulnerability, there's usually some kind of narrative that is happening. So Dear John is written somewhat as a letter to someone. I think All Too Well also is kind of in that similar
Mhm.
format. So Long London, again, like also thinking about kind of bidding something farewell and like speaking to it.
The Archer's
Yes.
also, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, and
Mhm.
well, from what I even understand, she didn't even I don't think she even understood, like, the concept of the track 5, I don't even think she understood it until maybe Red. Like,
Yeah.
I think it took other fans showing, I mean, I guess you should have to have a couple records to be able to start
Yeah.
noticing the pattern of the track 5s, but even it's like she was subconsciously putting like, the heart of the album at track 5.
Yeah. And that's what some people talk like it's the thesis statement or it's the heart of the album, or this is where, she feels at the point where she can open up. Like she's done kind of like the big, like usually one is kind of this big splash. So if we think of 1989 with Welcome to New York, right? So
Mhm.
there's some kind of big entree into the album. And then, by the time we get to five, we're feeling like, okay. The other thing that didn't make it into the article that was interesting is that track fours so there's two measures I use for track five: authenticity. So that's kind of like this realness or vulnerability, and then the use of emotions. And track fours are not as emotionally complex or don't have those conflicting emotions, but they are authentic. She's talked a lot about, say, glitter pens or fountain pens in terms of different kinds of narratives. So she imagines herself writing a song metaphorically holding a different pen depending on sort of the category of the song. And I think that she may do that in some way in thinking about the arrangement of an album. One thing that I was talking about is track 11s are a bop. Like if you are wanting to listen to a bop or the bop of the album, a safe bet is go to track 11.
So let's give some examples of track 11s.
So Honey is the track 11 on
Yeah.
this, which I don't feel is the bop, but she in her like voice memo that I read the transcript of describes it as a bop. So, which I think is interesting. So I think she does try to put a bop at track 11s. So anyway, so I empirically kind of address track fives and get to validate fans and myself to say, yeah, there's something special about track fives. Curiously, also track nines, but they don't get as much hype. And then track ones are kind of like I don't want to say generic, but they're just kind of like a all purpose, like bring you on board. They don't have a specific goal or theme in
Mhm.
kind of the same way that a track five does. And then track 11s are usually not banger is a little strong, but the bop
Yeah,
or
like
a bop.
it gives you, like,
Mhm.
hope, or it's like a
Mhm.
happier, it's not as heavy.
Mhm.
It's a lighter thesis statement.
Yeah, maybe like a counterpart to kinda deal with the track 5. So it was really fun to be able to move between these two spheres of being a Swiftie and doing something that people haven't really done in this way, and then being able to see then when we actually use these models, what do we learn and how does that, confirm or corroborate things that we expected, like when we see the track 5s, and then in what way is it sharing new knowledge. And one thing that's interesting is like, no one was like, I think TTPD is different from her previous like work, but I'm not sure. Like that's obvious. It was
Mhm.
such a departure in many ways. But this analysis kind of showed a progression that I think was not as clear. So having these three eras and showing how she moves from a more like kind of hopeful, positive space to a more emotional space that has some confliction into this like melancholy and anger, both in terms of, I don't go into sort of why this might be, but as fans, we can think about both the pandemic being kind of a weird time, which is when we saw Folklore and Evermore come out. But then we can also, thinking about what is public about her personal life, it also makes sense that this melancholy, angry space may have also come out through things she was going through in her own life. And then what I have spent the last few hours doing instead of sleeping last night was downloading the lyrics from the new album to see how it compares.
And
well, one, I love it. But it is so different. Like
okay, so
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I don't. Before we get into the new record, I kind of want to go back to a couple of things.
Sure.
So, like, what are the four quadrants? But is it like emotions? Like, are the quadrants all emotions?
No, two are. If we want to move kind of around what's happening, we've got in the sort of upper left is the long live for the hope of it all. So this is kind of youthful, hopeful music of possibility is, I think, one way to kind of think about it. So I could be misremembering, but I think Enchanted would fit there. Which is a very, like, I was enchanted to meet you. Like, this is somebody who learned some like $5 vocab words and is really just trying to pepper them in when they can. And then we move into her mid-career albums. One thing I don't go into that I think is really interesting is that Reputation is actually pretty close to 1989 in terms of where it lands. Ex ante, like before doing this analysis, I had kind of thought that it would be more angry, but in the analysis, it is not. And further listens, like the sound of the music is abrupt or kind of jarring in some respects, but the lyrics, I mean, she's got delicate, so it's softer than it sounds. And so that's kind of her like middle era in this emotional area that's kind of positive emotion moving into more negative emotion. Then she's got an area. So that one is sad, beautiful, tragic.
And that's which one? Is that upper right?
Upper right. And I say it's once again with feeling. And then the bottom right is Melancholy and Anger, Female Rage, the musical, which she's like famously, I believe, trademarked. And so here it is a lot of negative emotions are present, and we see Evermore, Folklore, and TTPD in that area. That's kind of a current era. And then in the bottom left, I call Fountain Pen with the subtitle This Ain't a Fairy Tale. And that's her kind of more narratively driven components. There are no albums that are wholly present in that sort of arena of her song work.
Does it everything plot? Is it all albums, or do you plot the songs? I guess when you're looking at the songs on the grid, is it like an equal distribution? Like, does it seem like she's kind of hitting it all on does every album get representation in all those quadrants, or are there like some quadrants where it's like Tortured Poets is only in one of those or whatever?
So for the most part, she does have coverage. It's not an even distribution. Her earlier work is kind of disproportionately in that long live. So that's where the like hopeful stuff, but
probably because that's all she knew. Like she didn't have the life experience to be able to go beyond that.
You think,
but I do think she also
but
she does return to that a lot. I mean, that, like, especially, I mean, in the new album, there's always the songs where they reference high school and proms and shit she didn't get to do. And, and that comes up almost every album. There's something on there about high school.
I think she had to be famous, I think that'd be a tough.
Oh, absolutely.
At the time that she did. So yeah. So it's a pretty even-ish distribution, kind of smattering of songs in that space, but some albums tend to be kind of more heavily centered in others, which is why we see the averages kind of moving around. So on average, her early work is in this hopeful space. On average, the like middle era of like Midnights is in kind of close, well, especially Lover, and they're kind of close to the center of her space. And there's no real way to interpret it, but I like to think of it as kind of core Taylor Swift.
Where does Red fall on this?
Oh, Red is in the early era. And
okay.
I'm a controversial person because I don't super love Red. And I know
Mm.
that it like brought
I
a lot of fans in.
I wasn't there yet. I was dipping my toe in at the time. I was like, I kinda like these singles, but I can't tell anyone.
I like
Like,
that. Well, and I mean, All Too Well is a masterpiece, but
oh,
I think she was trying to figure things out, you know, and so there's just a lot of different stuff happening on there, which mad respect. Like trying to sort of figure out who you want to be and how you get there is amazing. But I think Red is kind of one of my colleagues. I was asking their favorite Taylor Swift song, and they were like Red, and my brain couldn't even process that info. I was like, so what song on the album Red? And they're like Red, and I was like,
the
the song.
song Red?
The song Red? Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna listen some more to that. But so like I was like, oh. So yeah, so for me, like Red is kind of the forgotten child, except I remember
All
it
Too
for All
Well.
Too Well, which is so good.
All Too Well and
Um,
Nothing New and Treacherous.
yes.
I think All Too Well's great, but the 10-minute version I feel like is
Oh yeah.
that's canon now. I don't even think that the track 5 version of it even exists anymore in my brain.
No, All Too Well 10-minute version is all
Yeah.
that there is. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, I think, how to do it. So I did include the co-writers, I think, but not producers in this, which I think could be interesting. I'll
That would
talk a
be
little bit,
yeah.
yeah, about this, but then I also have so many ideas about where this could go. I'm going to be so insufferable as a published Swiftologist at this point.
I mean, what if this changes your whole life?
It has changed my whole life. I mean, the amount of joy that this has brought me, the fulfillment, the curiosity that I have, this sparked 2 subsequent research projects that I have going. So I have one that hopefully will send out in a couple of weeks about how we think about pop music in general and thinking about how we make meaning with pop lyrics. And then I have one on how US presidential candidates use playlists within their campaigns. And that is probably still a few months from being ready to go out, but it's definitely in draft form. And I never would have done or thought about doing them if not for this project.
And it's also great that your employer is like, like the University of Chicago, like this, University of Chicago, Friedman and et cetera is, they're okayed with this and supporting it and giving you a platform in which to do it.
I mean, I think one goal that I have, sort of a smaller level, but with this and just with my research in general is, being fun and being smart are not mutually exclusive. And I don't know why we need to treat them that way. Like, you can be yourself. You can dress vibrantly. You can be interested in things like pop music. You don't have to, pretend you only like niche things.
Well, and I think that, I mean, to go back to, it's like, I think that fun and pop music are girl things.
Right.
And, if you're having fun, then it's not serious. If you're having fun, then it's not important. Like, and so, which I think is and I think that's a way to kind of keep women out of those places where decisions are being made or high thinking is going on.
I think that's totally true. And that's something. So I'm part of like a summer research institute. And that's where this initial class was that I was starting this project. And the idea is that you have research, you teach courses, and then you have research projects with students. And I did a Q&A session at, one of their colloquia about how do you think about academic research? And it's me, someone who looks at how governments sort of redact or don't share security information, and then someone who looks at like international conflict. And we were talking about how we think about the value of our work. And I said, this is something that is incredibly top of mind for me because in some respects, people can critique it as silly or frivolous or not having the same sort of weight or heft. But this is also something that is a regular part of people's lives. And this, there's a ton of music, or a ton of research about how music affects people, about how they connect to music, how music connects to sense memories, connects to your
Mm-hmm.
experience, connects you to other
It's a time
people.
machine. I mean, I can hear songs and I can be immediately put back to like, 5th grade at the swimming pool on a
And
tinny speaker. Like it's It's amazing.
Yeah. And I just really want to push back against this idea that, you can't be smart and interested in non-serious. Like, who decides that this is serious or not serious? She's literally shaping economies with this tour. She broke Ticketmaster. She broke the AMC website when people
Mhm.
were trying to sign up to go see a lyric music video. She has an enormous effect on our society and on people. And I think to not study it for some superficial reason or being afraid of being perceived as superficial is a bit ridiculous. So I really relish the opportunity to watch people when I say, like, oh, I study Taylor Swift. Like, I have a project on her.
It's I think part of the reason why I have fallen so deeply into it. Part of it, I think, is our text string because we've got, there's there's two other women on that string, and like it's like they're all smart, we're all smart, so it kind of brings me more into it. But when I was younger, I was like such a snot about music. Like even when I was 10 years old, I knew it wasn't cool to like the New Kids on the Block. Like I've always been like this too, just a shithead about music. And I feel like part of my Taylor Swift love is I never allowed myself to fall into fandom on anything. And I'm full throttle into being this gigantic, dumb Swiftie. I should quit
See?
saying dumb.
No.
I should quit saying dumb. But I think it's because I'm allowing myself to actually like just love something.
And I think that's the thing is that a lot of women have stories. So one thing that is a journey is to wear a Taylor Swift shirt. There's something about the combination of my face and facial expressions and wearing Taylor Swift that it has the function of being a confession booth. Like people will come up to me and say things to me about Taylor Swift. I don't know them. Why are they talking to me? And so like some women are like, I hate Taylor Swift. And I'm like, why did you feel the
Good.
need to come tell me that? But then other people, I hear a lot about how, oh, I just didn't realize she was amazing. I didn't realize like there's a lot of late to the party Swifties. And I think I'm included as one of them. So what happened to me is like blank space took over my brain. And I was literally like in line at a Starbucks and saw the 1989 album and was like, I love this song so much. I am buying this physical CD so that I can drive around listening to Blank Space a million times.
It's a great song. It's actually a perfect song if you're going to go down that road. I mean, it's almost like it's like the whole of her,
Yeah.
it's making fun of her critics. It is lyrically clever. It still sounds new and
Yeah.
it's 14 years old or something.
And it has a goofy sound effect of the pin click, like there's something for
Wait,
everyone.
what's the pen click?
Oh, when she goes, I've got a blank space baby,
Oh,
I'll write your name.
yep.
Like,
Yep.
So I think that being here in this space.
And Starbucks lovers in there too. And
I
you
know,
got it at
right?
a Starbucks.
And then it sort of I still was a fan, but not like a capital S Swiftie. I guess now would be a good time to tell my Eras Tour story. I joke that there was some kind of laser or something that rewired my brain while I was there. So Mary had tickets. We had kind of just met at this point.
Well, the reason why this all happened was I was wearing a Taylor Swift sweatshirt when I went to a chess tournament, and Michelle and you were there, and my Eras tour, I had just accidentally spent
A decent sum.
my Eras tour, my tickets for the Eras tour like fucked up my cash flow and my business for a quarter. Like I fucked up. I hit too many buttons. I bought whatever, but I had tickets to the show. And so I think that's actually where this whole thing started, was we all were talking about how we were trying to get tickets. And I think you were more on the edge of that. You were kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now tell your story.
Isn't that the best origin story? So we're at a chess tournament together,
Yeah.
sitting in an elementary classroom. But yes, so Michelle, our other friend, so the two other friends in the chat had made plans to go, and they might have had tickets at that point, or this was maybe in the process. And I work at U Chicago on the south side, and I live on the north side. And like something happened where I just felt like, oh, I kind of want to do this. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to watch like the resale sites. I have an event that Friday. I usually don't on the South Side. It's right around the same time. I'm going to see if I can like buy some tickets. And then I was like looking and I was just watching it refreshing the whole day as the prices came down and down and down. And then I'm like texting my husband and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, if I'm doing this, I'm not sitting in some stupid ass, like nosebleed, lean against the wall kind of scenario. Like, if I'm doing it, like, I'm doing it. This is an unwise financial financial decision regardless. I'm going to own it. Like, let's go all
none
in.
of us made good choices around the money over this
Or
show.
we made the best choices, Mary.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of money I spent to completely change the direction of my life and cement 3 friendships, like, I think that's a good investment.
I agree.
So
what did you do?
So I bought the ticket. I bought a ticket front row at kind of the diamond. So it was dead center of the stage. So I go to my event. It was like a graduation celebration. I was like, okay, yay, congrats, bye. And like, I go back to my office and I'm like, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? The show started at 6:30. At 6:45, I buy my ticket. I hop in an Uber. I go to Soldier Field. I learn that my purse is too big. And I'm like, I have made it this far. I take everything out of the purse. I put it in my pockets. I shove it in a bush. I go to get in line. I'm at the wrong door. I figure out where I'm supposed to be. I get there. I sit down. I have 1 minute on the countdown to her set because there was a countdown clock. So I get to my seat with 1 minute to go.
Wow.
Yes.
It's like Lady Gaga singing applause. Like you are.
So like my brain, like my soul left my body. So I'm there. I do not sit, obviously, the entire time. I scream, sing, and shock myself that I, in fact, know basically all of the lyrics. So this was like a good moment of like
clarity.
Yeah. Of like, it might be that maybe.
I am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
The water's warm.
Exactly. So the whole thing happens. And then you, like, when it ends, you sort of get carried by the crowd to some random door. And it turns out that is the door I had tried to enter, did not, and stashed my purse. My purse was still there. Take the crap out of my pockets, put it back in the purse, and then spent 3 hours trying to get home.
That's amazing.
She did wave at me twice because I was wearing electric blue glow-in-the-dark glasses. And I feel that probably did make me noticeable.
She waved at you twice.
She waved at me
This
twice.
is the first time I'm hearing this.
Oh my God, that makes me feel happy because I feel like that's like the second piece of what I drop in. But yes, she waved at me. I mean, she waved in my general direction, but we all know that was clearly directed at me.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do.
Yeah. So it was amazing.
Yeah, that show, I had tickets for both Friday and Saturday. And I was going on Friday with John and Sebastian because it was Sebastian's first concert. I feel like,
high bar.
I know, but you know what the thing is? Like, it's one of these things where it makes sense. It makes sense that his first concert would be the greatest tour of all time. Because having me as his mom, I would get him in. I had a beautiful outfit that I had for the show, like the sequined, like red and with pink hearts on it. It was amazing. And then Sebastian, I made him a T-shirt that said, "Get it off my chest" in the "We are never getting," or the "Not a lot going on at the moment." T-shirt. But when we got into the show, we were on the floor. I thought I was so, like, I got floor seats. I was in row 13. Like, I felt like everything about this was coming together. And then I'm 5'2" and I could barely see shit. I mean, it was one of the most irritating experiences of my life, was like not like being so close yet so far.
Yeah. And that's tough.
It did suck, especially when I knew you were sending me pictures from the front row. And I'm like, what have I done with my life? And so my tickets for the second day were also on the floor. And I was like, fuck this. So I sold them and then used the money from that to buy one really good seat in a perfect spot. So my second night, I had really good seats the second night. But the first night was very frustrating because I couldn't see anything.
Yeah. And that's, I would be that person in front of you blocking your view. I'm sure I blocked.
Oh, and everyone had their phones up. I mean, Sebastian was standing on the chair because he could, but I couldn't. Yeah. And so it was, even Sebastian had better seats than I did.
But yeah, so that kind of kicked off everything. And again, like, I actually feel like it was a great financial decision.
Yeah.
Like, the things that came out of that were amazing. And that forced me to like admit, like, no, I'm pretty far in now. And then I was like, you know what? Like, in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's just make this my personality.
Well, and if you're going to do it, like, you might as well apply. I mean, I'm lucky because I can apply my love for Taylor to my job. I can DJ out in public and play whatever I want. Like, I can make it happen. But for a computational computational social scientist, you got to figure out a different way to like make it
Oh.
work with you. And it perfectly did, like, and I think could you take this model and apply other artists to it?
Yeah, so that's kind of the hope I developed this general framework, and then I have the pop article that's looking at, I think we've got like 10 or 15 years of Billboard Hot 100 hits, and we're using the same general framework in that. And then the campaign playlist is also following this framework. So now that I've got the framework developed, I can look at other music in this way. And then the additional layer, which is what I haven't done here, is this is all lyric focused. So there's nothing about the music, which is also very important. And that's where I also want to go. So I've been learning a lot about how do we think about music? How do we represent music? Because something that she does as well, like we were talking about earlier, she's very intentional and clever. So I can do it with a broken heart. If you look at the lyrics, it's a very sort of heavy song.
It's a miserable song.
It is, but it has the best beat,
Mhm.
like, and the sort of apex of the song or the highest point is where the crowd was chanting more. And it's at a point where it's structured so that you shout more, sort of further underscoring exactly what it is she's singing about. And so the music combines in this really brilliant way where you get this sort of dissonance between the heaviness of the lyrics and the happiness of the music. And I think she does that also quite well.
Well, and when you can, and its presence on the Tortured Poets, which is it is an emotional roller coaster, and a lot of the songs on it are so mid tempo or slow or heavy, and I think it comes after Love of My Life, which is truly that's a hard song to not cry to, and I know the song before it is a downer. It's like,
Yeah.
I can fix it, or maybe I can, but sonically, it is the most different song on the whole album.
Yeah.
And it's the most upbeat. It is the most, celebrate. I mean, that's the song that Travis came on the tour and picked her up and, got color back into her face.
So I have a paper that's kind of temporarily paused, but looking at like fandom and how it manifests. It was a little more sociological than I wanted to do right now. So hopefully I'll have time to get back to it. But like, I know a lot about lyrics. I'm really bad at memorizing, specific tracks. I know the albums, obviously, and like the order, but I know a lot about like the body of her work. And, we've been sharing these brackets and I sent it to a different friend and she's like, I don't even know most of these songs. I'm like, I know, other than the movie songs, I know every single song. I know them well enough that I can rank them, but I only know, like, everything I have learned about her personal life has been accidental. Like, I have never tried to learn about her personal life because that is not like how I connect, versus other fans connect very much. Like when TTPD came out, there was a lot of conversation about which tracks were about whom, both about in terms of past relationships and in terms of the content. And for me, like, my locus of interest, I think, one, just as like a giant nerd who then has this like sort of centering in philosophy and meaning and all of that, like, I'm really curious about what is being built or shaped and what we take away from that. So like, that is the thing that I find most interesting and compelling, because in the same way that she waved and it truly felt that she was waving at me, I think a lot of these songs feel like you could connect to them, and like
absolutely.
she is somehow channeling your emotions. And I find it so fascinating how she does that. Like, I Look in People's Windows is a really like kind of funny, fun song, which
that's a really sad song to me.
well, not funny, haha, funny, strange. Like,
Sure, it is weird.
Like, the imagery in it is so kind of relatable, and you can see yourself in it. And she has kind of a ridiculous premise about, like, being this creeper, right? Like, that's not the point of the song, but
looking at people, like, I think it's creeping on people on the internet, but I think it's, it's like checking in on people that you don't hang out with anymore and kind of knowing what their life is, but you don't really know it because you're on the outside of it.
Yes, exactly. And like that, like, that's the thing that's really interesting. Like, Welcome to New York is a fun song, but it's also like, how does she manage to make us feel like we can see ourselves there? Because, one of the lines is like dropping our bags on apartment floors. And we are very certainly dropping different bags on very different floors, in very different apartments. But somehow it feels in a way that like, yeah, you and me, that's what we're
Mhm.
doing.
Like,
And
I'm going to New York and I'm visiting my friend. I'm going to drop my bag. And I shoved everything into one bag so I didn't have to check
yeah,
it so I could get here as fast as I could. And like,
right,
let's drop him and let's, run downstairs and go get a drink at the black and
right.
whatever, the blue and
The
gold
black
or
dog.
whatever.
But yeah, right? Then we can be drunk in the back of a car. But yeah, so like that is something that I find really interesting. And then other fans come at it from a totally different perspective. Like my husband, like we've had this like long ongoing joke because how I feel about Taylor Swift is how he feels about Neil Young. And
Mhm.
so it's actually been great because I've been awesome about Neil Young. I've seen Neil Young somewhere around 12 times. Uh, we have every single album. We have every version. We have it on vinyl. We have this like archive thing. We have subscriptions to things like, and it's really interesting seeing how my husband connects to Neil Young and then Neil Young fandom. He knows everything about how songs were written and how they connect to each other and the people in his lives and what his recording studio was
Mhm.
like.
Who produced it and why this
Yes.
guy and why
He's
did
very interested in that. And like, I am like, cool. Like, I
yeah.
want to dig into the words. My husband, one of the like, in our wedding ceremony, like a Neil Young song was referenced. Like, that is how far in we are.
Mhm.
Had I
Uh,
been a Swiftie at that point, we would be there. Like, we're both high level fans. I wouldn't say I'm top 1% of Swifties. I would say Miles is top 0.5% of Neil Young fans at this point. But like the things that he connects to in his fandom are so different from mine, which I find fascinating. So I'm not as knowledgeable about her personal stuff. I mean, I know about Kelsey because one, it's unavoidable, and two, my husband is a lifelong Chiefs fan. So like
mhm.
finally there that Venn diagram
It's a
is
circle.
just, yeah, basically. Yeah, so for me, it's been a lot of the lyrics and thinking about like they're just so good
Mhm. They
and
really
how
are.
she structures things. And I, as a person who likes kind of these like cascading dominoes, like she likes them and executes them in a way that I just have mad respect for. And so being able to use my skills to kind of uncover this stuff has been so fun for me.
Like almost like a mastermind with dominoes falling into line.
That might be.
All right, what do you think about the new record?
Okay, well, obviously, I think that it is great, but I reran the analysis
Ooh!
with the album. So I have a few things, and I was working on it, but I was too slow to get it kind of done before we could talk.
Where does dickmatized land in the large language model?
Right. So unfortunately, I don't think it's included, although we could maybe decide. I mean, I think joy is really where I
Yeah,
think that would
sure,
fall.
dickmatized is joy.
Yeah.
That's about right, yeah.
In the context of the song, I mean, I do think. But yeah, so joy has always been present in her songs, but even more so within this album. Like it is very much a joyful album. Something that I saw in the original research has been this kind of, if you look at the balance between positive emotions and negative emotions, the balance has been trending negative, meaning that there are more negative songs or more negative emotions
Mhm.
present in her album as a whole than positive. Her early work, youthful, hopeful, possibility, and then, ground down by reality. This is an uptick. So Midnights is a little bit of a blip upwards. This isn't quite as joyful as Midnights. Again, like,
Really?
yeah.
Midnights is more joyful than this album?
Well, so one thing I want to, the base Midnights. So one thing I do in this analysis is I had to make a choice about
Vault
what
tracks?
is like, what is the version of record,
Mhm.
basically. So most analysis, the version of record is the most expansive. But in some of the analyses, I show kind of everything. And in her work, for the most part, the sort of polished public version is more positive than the private version, which I also think is like an interesting reflection.
Mhm.
So Midnights is happier than the Midnights 3 a.m. or Midnights Till Dawn. So Showgirl is kind of in between. So it's happier than the expanded Midnights, but not as joyful. Well, not as positive as Midnights. kind of on the whole. So that's something that's interesting. The thing that I predicted, and so I feel so vindicated and like smug about, is there's the long live quadrant. There's sad, beautiful, tragic. In between is what I call glitter pin, which is just keep dancing. That's where track 11s live on average, in glitter pin.
And is
And
glitter pen in the quadrant?
it's like the dividing line in between. So it's like as you move from kind of this hopeful place of possibility into this positive emotional space, glitter pen is there because it's kind of like this freedom, like carefree. And Life of a Showgirl is up there by glitter pen, which is kind of how it had been hyped. But I'm pleasantly surprised that it's still in that emotional quadrant. I think what she's really done as a songwriter is learned how to wield her pen, right? Like learned how to incorporate these emotions and really write in a way that comes from this sort of inner depths. And that's what, as a Swiftie, has been so compelling for me to see. So that was really fun. So it's a departure. And again, like when you listen to this, I don't think I'm telling you anything new, like this is different, but it's a departure from her previous eras. It's not clustered near anything. And so
So there's like an even distribution of the songs?
well, no, like, if we look at, I don't know if this is going to go backwards, but if we look at where her songs are, she starts in this upper left quadrant of long live, possibility, hopefulness. And then she moves kind of down into like more emotional, but not super emotional. And then she goes into like melancholy. So we have this kind of like curve. Showgirl is up here. So like it's pretty far away from what else is going on. And it's because of where the songs are located. So she does have, so Actually Romantic is in the glitter pen area, which is kind of interesting.
It's a real mean song, though.
It is. And so like I'm really curious. So is Ruin the Friendship is a really interesting song because it's also kind of,
It's sad.
it's bittersweet, I
Oh,
think.
sure. Yeah, bittersweet I would go with.
Yeah.
What I find to be this album beyond the I mean, not even beyond the lyrics, but like sonically, it sounds like light FM yacht rock in my mind. There really is like an 80s synths. If you like, as I was laying there listening to it last night, I'm like, this sounds like it could be like a Shania Twain, like second single off of, Still the One, like sonically. There are some songs where it really kind of goes there. It's mid tempo. The whole thing is very mid tempo, which is also surprising.
It's just really funny that you said that it both sounds like yacht rock and Shania Twain, because when I think yacht rock, Shania Twain just right there in the forefront.
No, the light rock. If there's like a light
light
FM,
rock. Yes.
There's like a light FM. Yeah, light FM was what I was thinking while I was listening to it.
That's interesting.
Like Still the One era Shania Twain.
I'm looking at this. I don't see canceled on here, so I don't know if it got cut out. But basically, so if we think about her albums as having kind of this like downward C, this album is an upward C, which is also kind of, so there's just a lot happening here. Eldest Daughter, perhaps unsurprisingly, is in a similar spot to Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. And then The Fate of Ophelia and Father Figure are in kind of Reputation 1989 area of the plot. So
they are very Max Martin-y.
Yeah. So it was really interesting to kind of see these things or these pieces of it kind of borne out and to like layer this new album onto her work to think about how this fits in. Eldest Daughter is, I would say that Father Figure is somewhat more track 5-ish to me than Eldest Daughter, at least within the last less than 24 hours of listening. So I'm interested to dig more into that because Eldest Daughter is an interesting song. And I think like could be somewhat of a departure for kind of what it is and what it's doing. So I think that like doing this analysis was kind of fun. And then Wish List is in the Long Live area, which I also think is like hilarious. Wish List is the block full of kids that all look like you. Or
I know. There's some lines in that I don't understand, but I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm there for it all. Jean, this was incredible. I kind of feel like I want to help you with the music, with figuring out how to do the music because I have some ideas. And don't be scared off by I think it sounds like light FM analysis. I've got better thoughts inside of me.
Got more in the tank. All right.
But this was amazing.
This was so fun.
I want to be one of your students. Can I get into University of Chicago?
Absolutely.
I
Well,
don't think
you said that like you had to figure out how to make Taylor Swift work in your work. Just ask my students. I have a lot of Taylor Swift examples.
Amazing. Well, Jean Clipperton, thank you so much
Mary.
for joining us. And I'd like to do this again.
Yeah, me too.
You live 2 blocks from me, so I can make it happen.
I think you can. All right. Thank you very much. It was really great.
Thanks for listening to All Up in My Lady Business with me, Mary Nisi. We'd love for you to like, review, subscribe, follow us at All Up in My Lady Business on the gram. And if you're a female identifying person and you want to dance, you can follow. I mean, everybody can follow it. But if you want to be a part of the magic at Hot Flash Dance Party, sign up for the mailing list to find out where our next party is going to be. And if you are looking for a DJ in the Chicagoland area or anywhere else, money's the same color everywhere. Fly us out. ToastandJamDJs.com has the best. And listen to my radio show. I have a radio show on Chirp Radio at chirpradio.org. That's Mondays, every Monday from 12 until 3 p.m. CST. Today's episode is produced by Shiraz Dada. Theme song composed and performed by, you guessed it, Shiraz Dada. All right, guys. Peace out.